Ryan, and I would like to welcome you to Lyfe Boost here. I'm really excited to share my content with you. I'm really excited to have the ability to have this one-on-one conversation with you. I really have a passion for saving lives and making a difference for individuals within their day-to-day life, and I really like to help within mental health, spiritual health, and physical health. I like to focus on all of those different types of aspects, and I'm really excited to have the privilege to talk to you today. Today, we're going to be talking about a man that has made a substantial impact on the world of mental health and the community within Toronto, Ontario, Canada. He's a leader of a movement that has been in the spotlight for very some time, and he is making an impact on those that are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. And it's very stigmatized in our society and within first responders throughout Canada. And it's been a very big issue for mental health for first responders. And I really want to be able to try to make an impact for those that are in the first response area. And I really want to try to make an impact on those individuals, right? This man here, he solved international cases involving the importing and exporting of cocaine. He was in the force and he investigated crimes such as money laundering, extortion, kidnapping, forcible confinement, mass murder, mutilations, human trafficking, weapons trafficking, nuclear weapons trafficking. This man has literally fucking done it all. This guy is a 23-year-old veteran of the Toronto Police Service in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. He was a frontline police officer, making his way eventually to the organized crime unit and drug squad, and he ended his career as a homicide detective, which is fucking insane, right? Like, this guy has seen a lot of different graphics and different things throughout his career, and it's not just a frontline officer. This guy has been in multiple different types of divisions. This is just a part of his resume. This is not including everything that this man has done. And as quoted by the man himself, right, for 14 years of his career, he was involved in the war of drugs. I'd really like to introduce Jason Coulthard, my very good friend, and also my guest host here. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Wow. Thank you for saying all that. You know, as you're mentioning all those things, I was reflecting on all those times. You know, it's quite been quite an emotional ride for me. You know, to say the very least. Uh, I've always loved being a police officer. I loved helping people. That's why I signed up. I signed up to make a difference, to lock bad guys up, and I did that for a long time. You know, and as you mentioned, I did it from a lot of different aspects. I did it from the alleyways and the streets of downtown Toronto, to the neighborhoods, to the communities across Canada and around the world that are involved in the drug trade. And it really, truly opened up my mind to the war on drugs, and the effects of it. You know, it's incredible the amount of crime involved in just the trafficking of illegal narcotics, like you mentioned, not just the actual product itself, but the ripple effect from those crimes. Really, truly opened my mind. Like, one of the aspects that I worked in, I was on the heroin team in Toronto. So we focused on the importing of heroin and ephedrine from their native countries, Afghanistan, Iran, India. And that was during the time of the Afghan war, where there's a lot of different forces that were in Afghanistan at that time. And the farmers, their main product that they could produce was the poppy flower. And that's a derivative of opium, which then is refined into heroin, which now we found on the streets today. That's cut with a whole bunch of other things, including fentanyl and carfentanil now, and literally killing thousands of people. So during this journey, I did a lot of my own research to kind of understand the intricacies of the drug importing networks worldwide and how they operated with their laundering of monies and their shell companies, and the movement of commodities, and how they would move those commodities, meaning drugs, worldwide. Very intriguing, to say the very least. And that's what I really, truly enjoyed, was figuring out all of the dots connecting these operations. And I found in Afghanistan, like I mentioned, the farmers have the ability to grow the poppy flower, and that gives them about $300 every 3 months, 4 times a year, to feed their family. And back then, the crops were being destroyed. They were being burned. They were being sprayed by either the coalition forces, by the Taliban, and now you have families all over Afghanistan who don't have an income because number one, the poppy flower is illegal, and they can't do it. So now they're left as basically a third world country. Cocaine, you have the same thing in South America up the trade routes through Mexico. You follow those routes and you look at the mass murders that happen. I believe it was 80,000 murders a year in Mexico alone about 10, 15 years ago. A lot of that directly related to the drug trade. Um, Not much of the enforcement that I did made a positive impact, to say the very least. There wasn't a lot of life saving that we did, although we did take illegal drugs and guns and whatnot off the street. It didn't seem to change much of anything. Um, so when I came out of the drug squad, I worked in homicide for 3 years, and I was dealing mainly with homicides from the higher echelon of the organized crime world at that point, which was interestingly enough connected to my previous 8 years in organized crime and major drugs. Um, so I essentially saw the war on drugs from every aspect, up into including mental health. Um, the addicts, the people whom I was told to arrest when I was a young officer doing street level drugs to secure evidence, to ensure our safety, and that community of addicts and drug dealers is generally armed. So when we arrest them, it's generally done quickly and forcefully to ensure everyone's safety, including theirs. Unfortunately, at times, they do get hurt. Um, and that was the job. That's what we were told to do. You have to go out there, you have to secure the evidence. And the Canadian Evidence Act gives us the authority to use as much force as necessary to secure evidence from destruction. So when you have a crack addict swallow a 20 piece of crack, $20 piece of crack cocaine, you are given the authority under the Canadian Evidence Act to use as much force as necessary to secure that evidence, up to including choking them out.
Do
That's
you?
terrible.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty fucking
Absolutely
terrible.
terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible,
Do you
and I
find?
reflect now on that, and I'm truly heartbroken um, by being number one forced to do that, and now seeing from a different perspective of the hurt that continuously causes in a perpetually insane system that we're living in.
Yeah, there's places like Sweden that has like a rehabilitation side to things versus the North American side, right? The North American within USA and Canada is more punishment based, and areas more in Europe are more rehabilitation based. Do you find that we should try to adopt the systems that we have in Europe compared to the systems that we have here in Canada because of these issues, right? Where you have the legal justifications to do these things, right? So, do you feel that it's going to make a bigger impact for society if we transition to that type of discipline versus the discipline we do now?
Um, Definitely things need to change. I haven't done a tremendous amount of research into the system that you're speaking of. What I am aware of is basically the United States itself has changed the way that our mental health and the way that our physical health is managed. Um, Part of my journey, just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective of this, I was an addict, porn addict, alcohol addict. I was raped when I was 10 years old. I was triggered by an event at work similar to that, amongst all the other things that I dealt with. Um, and that for me was a lot of things for me to overcome. Um, and I ended up going down to a retreat center that was incredible. It has an 87% healing rate for anxiety, a 91% healing rate for depression. And I went down there and I was one of those statistics. I came back healed. I had a miraculous event, a supernatural event. In fact, what the doctors and the psychiatrists determined to be psychosis, bipolar, schizophrenia, open visions. It was very impactful. I was healed instantly. In a moment, I was lifted up into the cosmos. I was shown basically my life from the beginning to the end, the way I'm going now, and how I need to change directions. Kind of like the Scrooge story. I saw a trillion colors of light. I met a whole bunch of different old people. They told me stuff, and it was incredible. It really truly blew my mind. And I went to the psychiatric unit as an outpatient, so I was under the care of psychiatrists prior to this experience, taking so many pills. I had taken over 12 different types of psychiatric medications over about a 5-year period. Last 3 years of my career with homicide, I was experiencing daily panic attacks, waking up every morning with a in my chest, and then it just expand. I start to convulse, throw up, sweat, and driving to work in my pretty suit, and I got a cup to throw up in, a cup of water, and a tea towel over my suit. Get into work and wash my face and go in, and everything's fine. Like nobody had any clue about what was happening with me. Um,
When did
so after this,
you when did you realize there was an issue with your mental and physical health? Like when was the time when you were in this position? You just said I couldn't handle it any longer. Like what was that position that led you
that
to that?
was yeah, that was May 2017. That was after 3 years in homicide. Homicide wasn't really what triggered me. There were the events from my time in organized crime, dealing with the things that I dealt with, and that was a moment that I booked off sick, and I just said I can't do this anymore. Um, and then the following, so that was May 2017. So May, June, July, August, September, October, November. 6 months had passed, and I was given a psychologist, but that was it. Medicated. I was having thoughts of suicide. I had made intricate plans to actually end my life. I have 3 daughters who are 18, 15, and 13 now. Um, and basically, that's when I went down to this retreat center. After almost opening up the door, going up the highway to put myself into a coma because I didn't want to continually experience the shocks and the depression and the lack of any emotion at all. Um, I was numb. I felt like a dial tone, and it was torture. Like I remember saying to my friends, if you want to torture the ISIS people, give them PTSD. Like this is absolutely terrible what I'm going through. Kill myself on a regular basis, and that was a problem, you know. And finally, I went down to this retreat center, um, and my original request, I when I was originally asked to go, I said no because it had to do with Jesus, and I'm a detective. You know, I only believe in what I can see, feel, hear, and touch. So I said thanks anyways, and that's when I had my hand on the car door and almost open it up to And then I thought, all right, whatever, I gotta do something. Take me to this place. He said it has a success rate of 87%, 91, sure, whatever. So I went down there. I actually learned. I learned about the true cause and effect of our injuries. I learned about why. I learned how to release. I learned how to recognize. I learned how to forgive. I learned. I learned how to love. I learned what love was. Learned about healing. And it really truly blew my mind, the way that this information was presented to me. And as a skeptic in what I used to call religion, what I now call the truth, was incredible. Like one of the first things that the doctor said, and I say doctor because he used to be a medical doctor, and he was giving out prescriptions all kind, and decided I'm not really helping people. So he grew up in a Christian household. His dad was a pastor, and he was a nice guy. So he left the whole ministry and turned his back on that. So then he went back and he started to do a lot of research, actually. He started to do a lot of research. into the cause and effect of our injuries. And he found, certain things are caused by what we do and what we experience in our life, and also from our generations. Cancers are passed down, heart disease is passed down, mental health is passed down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he wanted to figure out why. And he ended up figuring out over 80% of these illnesses and why they enter our bodies. And they are generationally passed on, such as cancers in women. So breast cancer in women in the left breast, environmental impactors aside, suggest and have been proven to be related to anger, resentment, unforgiveness, and rage towards a female blood relative in that person's life. The right side is a male or a non blood relative. Again, environmental impactors aside. What you eat, what you sit around, your environment also contributes to us because we're a triune being, we're a spiritual being made up of a soul, which is our mind, will, and emotions, and we live in a motorhome, which is our body. So we have to filter and fuel all three areas properly in order to be in perfect optimal health. And it's hard. Um, so, and I get taken off track sometimes. So you got to
Oh
bring
no,
me
no,
back
it's
to
okay. I
the
just didn't want to
topic. Yeah.
interrupt you. You're saying a lot of great content. You're explaining a lot of great content
Yeah.
in
So
regards
yeah,
to
I
the whole
remember where I
situation.
was. Yeah. So at this place that I went to is called Be in Health,
Hmm.
and it's a program called For My Life, and he began to make sense to me. And I was like reflecting on other people in my life that have different injuries, such as eczema. And eczema, for example, he gave an example of a mother and a father who brought their 10-month-old baby to him and had eczema over 90% of his face. And the pastor, former doctor, said to the mom and dad, which one of the two of you didn't want to have this baby? And the mom said, well, I guess that was me. I wanted to have a girl, not a boy. And the doctor says, well, your boy became aware of that as soon as you became aware of their sex. You rejected him. You probably haven't nurtured him properly. And that's why this is happening. So he said to them, I want you to go home. I want you to stop this behavior. I want you to love that boy like you should have. You're probably not breastfeeding it. No, he's on formula. Start breastfeeding that boy and say this prayer of repentance that you're sorry. You're going to change your ways. You're going to do better. And then 2 months later, the boy's face is clear of eczema. And I reflected on other people in my life and known their upbringing, whether they were an unwanted child or not loved properly as a child. And you look at their physical state, and they have eczema, they have psoriasis. The other thing that he's proven is that asthma and respiratory illnesses are related to the fear of abandonment or being abandoned. So think about being 6 years old and your parents take you and they throw you in the forest at nighttime, they run away. How does your respiratory system change? So if you're in a constant state of fear of being abandoned, you're going to have a respiratory illness. So now we have COVID related respiratory illnesses because people are left alone in the hospital without their grandkids and sons and daughters coming to see them. They've been abandoned, and when you begin to understand the true cause and effect, you can reverse these things. You can start recognizing where you've gone wrong, where family members have gone wrong, and even in treating you terribly at times. What I began to recognize is something that I used to say to bad guys on a physical level was, "You're not a bad person. You've just done a bad thing," and that's really true. Because if you look at murder, there have been a few murderers out there who have been deemed not clinically sane to go to trial, so they don't go to jail. I would I would actually submit that every single suicide and every single homicide is a result of a mental illness. Period. You're not in a sane frame of mind when you're committing murder. Even if you're in self-defense, you're not in a sane frame of mind. And it was very explosive, the education that I had. Came back from there, had that supernatural experience, and then explained to the psychiatrist during an outpatient appointment that I had met God. I was healed. I didn't need the medication anymore. We got into an argument. I ended up getting committed under the Mental Health Act for being a danger to her. Security guards ran down the hallway. I think they're looking to tackle me in this little room, and I'm not a big fella, so I just submitted to walking with them, get in the elevator, and there was a whole bunch of people in there, all for me, just thinking I was a scary dude or something like that. Asked me to empty my pockets out. Out comes my badge. Security guard's like, "Oh, you're a cop?" I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "Throw it in the bag." I was like, "All right." So a few hours later, I'm upstairs in the intensive care unit, locked in a room. Thank God they didn't strap me down to the bed because I wasn't being violent in any way, shape, or form. I just have a loud voice. And I was in there for 21 days against my will. I was committed on a Form 1, a Form 3, and a Form 4 for the initial assessment, and then for then for 14 days, and then again for another 30 days. And it was a very educational experience, very explosively traumatic as well, not only from the experiences that I personally went through, but also seeing what other people had gone through during those 21 days. I was like the grade 12 guy doing his third year. Like I saw so many people come through there, and I spoke to as many people as I could just because that's the type of guy I am. I got in trouble at times speaking to people. I stopped my roommate from slitting his wrist with a shank that he made from a cookie tin. I was told that I'm not a police officer in there, and I was deemed to be in possession of a knife the next day, and that was part of my 14-day committal because the doctor read what he read and misinterpreted the events. Um,
And
so
what
long story short,
other
yeah, yeah.
and what other physical symptoms did you experience in the jail? I'm sorry, not in the jail, but like in the mental health institution. Like, what did you experience in that mental health area in particular? Like, what did
Yeah,
you experience?
as an inmate in that mental health area, um, that's a good term. Uh, I wanted to jump through the window. So they gave me a medication called Seroquel,
Okay.
and I was the first night I took it. I remember having tremendous nightmares, um, and I was calculating how thick the window was going out onto Simcoe Street towards the clock tower, the digital clock there, because I was going to jump through it. Like I was just going out of my mind. And I went down to the nurse's station because I figured I'm not really heavy enough to get through both windows. I'd probably just bounce off it like I did at that search warrant door.
Yeah.
That was actually funny. So, anyways, I went down to the nurse's station and said, "Hey, I want to jump through the window and I want to kill myself, and I'm not feeling good. I'm having nightmares." And he said, "Go back to sleep." And I was like, "What? Sleep, nightmares? That doesn't work." Um, so that's kind of some of the experiences I had. I had my life threatened 2 or 3 times by other inmates, patients. Sorry, um, that sucked. Um, my whole story is actually on YouTube. Locked up for 21 days. There's quite a lot
Being
to it.
being a man in law enforcement, did you feel shame or embarrassment to reach out for support as there is a stigma against men showing vulnerability in that type of way? Did you find that like it was hard for you to reach out to the other programs or when you did get out of that 21-day facility in the mental health hospital, when you got out, did you feel that there was some form of shame, embarrassment or anything like that?
So two-sided question. The first side, with work, I had no help from the system around me. Pride definitely got in the way of me booking off sick. I was a homicide detective, and I had done all these things in organized crime. I figured, I can't book off sick. I got all these things happening, and the stigma as well. Yeah, that was tough too. Like there still is a huge stigma surrounding mental health and PTSD, and it was interesting after I booked off. Working on all of those teams that I worked on, maybe 2 guys reach out to me now, and I work with hundreds of people.
That's
And
it.
it's
There's only
just,
two people that reached out to you.
yeah, on a consistent basis. The rest, I guess they just don't know how to talk to me. They don't know what to say. They don't know. I get it. and there is that stigma surrounding it. Um,
And what's a
but I
way do
think,
what's a way do
go
you
ahead.
think that law enforcement could do to change that? Like, what do you think that law enforcement can do to change that stigma? Because like every day when you're out there risking your life, you're out there with your partner, you're in that patrol vehicle, you're going down the streets, you're going into several dangerous environments, and you know what I mean. You go through this traumatic event that you just had, and then you tell people, you reach out for that help, you reach out for that assistance, but then there's only two people out of the entire police force that actually is consistently worried about your mental health.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. You know what I mean? I think that's a really big problem to really focus on, is that why as police officers are we only focused on the negativity and not trying to make things positive in a way where we can focus on rehabilitation for other officers? Because it's insane that there's only been two people to actually reach out for help in that incident, right? So it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And what I mean that, like, two people that have called me to ask me how I am, um, and I talk to a lot of other for frontline workers now who are in the same situation. The majority of people that I talk to now are also injured with an operational stress injury, and it is a common theme that many of us are left out there to dry without any resources to help us. They give us a psychologist, and psychology is very centered on specific ways of doing psychology, such as cognitive behavior therapy or EMDR, um, that they work for some, and my psychologist has been somewhat beneficial. I'd say he's maybe less than 2% of my recovery. What I've found with my recovery is I needed to do a lot of different things, apply multiple things in order to repair. Um, I've taken part in equine therapy, canine therapy, peer-to-peer support is so important. To be around people who understand you, who understand the injury. And going back to your question about how do you change that environment at work, you have somebody in that car beside you who has been there, who has been in that hole. So when you go to your partner and you don't get locked up, you don't go to the hospital, you don't get charged, you get taken to a safe environment where we can help you, where we can give you proper resources, we can give you options. Art therapy has been a huge part of my recovery in every aspect: music, woodworking, painting, journaling, and I could go on. Like, it's incredible the things you could reach out to. The elements of nature have helped me. Ecotherapy, meditation, prayer, reflection. So many different aspects to peel back the layers of hurt, because we're not just injured because of one thing. We might suspect it's one thing, but that one thing is an injury that is triggered from another thing, and it could be a big family tree of triggers. I know for me it was. I had to put together a traumatic timeline to bring out the peer-to-peer support is so important. To be around people who understand you, who understand the injury. And going back to your question about how do you change that environment at work, you have somebody in that car beside you who has been there, who has been in that hole. So when you go to your partner and you don't get locked up, you don't go to the hospital, you don't get charged, you get taken to a safe environment where we can help you, where we can give you proper resources, we can give you options. Art therapy has been a huge part of my recovery in every aspect: music, woodworking, painting, journaling, and I could go on. Like, it's incredible the things you could reach out to. The elements of nature have helped me. Ecotherapy, meditation, prayer, reflection. So many different aspects to peel back the layers of hurt, because we're not just injured because of one thing. We might suspect it's one thing, but that one thing is an injury that is triggered from another thing, And it could be a big family tree of triggers. I know for me it was. I had to put together a traumatic timeline to bring out all of the traumatic experiences in my life going back to birth. Um, and it was a difficult journey, and it's a necessary journey to go through. Um, the ability to prevent these things from happening to begin with is where we should actually be starting, by educating people about the things you might experience when you're at work. We see it on TV. We see what the first responders go through. We know that. But when you experience it in real life, when your finger's on that trigger and you're just about to take somebody's life, but you don't, that has an emotional response. Unless you're a psychopath, um, which unfortunately a lot of the services kind of train you to be that way, to be a robot, to just put the uniform on, do your job, go call to call. What's wrong? You got sour belly, or this is your job? Was that a stinky one? You didn't like that last sudden death? You didn't like the back of that guy's face not being where it's supposed to be? What about the neck? When they hang, we didn't like that. What's wrong with you? Come on, let's go drink. Oh, okay. I guess that's what we do. And you just continuously call after call after call. You put these thoughts and emotions, which you're not allowed to experience, onto what I call a rock, and you throw it in your backpack, and they just keep going in, call after call, experience after
They
experience.
just keep adding it and adding it and adding it, and
Yeah,
it gets much more worse, right? And the
right.
police force is not really doing anything in regards to help and assistance in regards to that, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, after a stressful call, like after going through these experiences one after another, right? They don't really give you that much time or delay because you have so many
Not
other
at all.
files that you have to work on, right? And
Not
you
at all. And
also
for
have
example, Ryan, I'll tell you a prime example of a fellow I was talking to last week, first responder from Alberta, Jasper. So a few years ago, he's involved in the bus rollover. I don't know if you remember that happened. The busload of people that rolled down the hill, and it was catastrophic. A lot of people lost their lives. And he and I believe it was 6 or 8 other police officers, six, I believe, were alone for 2.5 hours waiting for paramedics, fire, other assistants to arrive. They're police officers. They get a badge on their shoulder that says first aid. That's it. They got first aid kits, they got warming blankets. That's it. That's all. Next day, what do you think happened with them?
all of them just destroyed.
Yeah, they went to work.
Yeah,
They went to work.
the next
Like, that
day.
blew my freaking mind.
Yeah, they
And
went
and
to
it
work
doesn't
the
actually
next day.
surprise me, because you look at a Young Street shooting, you look at the van attacks, you look at whatever event you want to look at, they're there the next day. Some just because they get up and say, fuck it, I'm going in. I'm a tough guy. I got a badge. This is my job. I'm sorry that happened. Blah, blah, blah. And others just because they're expected to, and others because, where do I go from here? I'm part of this team, and, we did this thing, and we got to be together. Like, one of the experiences that I had as a homicide cop is we were looking for a bad guy, and we sent out a bunch of teams and intelligence and plain clothes and in gang units and stuff to find our fella. And they found him down in the entertainment district one night. And they ended up trying to arrest him. It ended up in a big shootout. He gets killed. One of the cops gets shot in the holster. The video is actually online. CTV News. Quasi Skeen Peters was the suspect's name. Dash cam caught the entire thing. There was at least 8, 12 officers involved in that interaction. One of them killed him, obviously. Uh, they all went, they all got injured from that incident. They didn't get the proper resources to repair from it, although a few of them are back at work right now. Um, and there's a number of those like people that I've talked to on my network involved at work with things. And the diffusing and the debriefing sessions are required, and they happen. However, the environment isn't there for people to openly and honestly feel their emotions because of the judgment, and also because the fear of losing stature, losing your position, being judged. Um, and it's a tough environment to work in. But what we see right now is that there are so many people out there that are injured from PTSD that they're not at work. They're working to half capacity. They're alcoholics while they're police officers. That's not a good thing. And now what we have is in Toronto, I believe we have at least 500 members of the Toronto Police Service that are currently not at work. And I believe it's higher than that. And there are people who are at work who they call the walking wounded, physically or mentally injured. They put them in what unfortunately is called the cabbage patch, which is just a room that they do filing and paperwork in. So when I started as a police officer in 1996, we had 25 to 30 officers show up per shift. When I was a sergeant in 22 Division in 2008, one night I put out 6 officers in the entire 22 Division, and that's a massive division.
And how big would you estimate that size is for so that people could understand like how big is that environment? Like around like 15 kilometers, you'd say?
Oh no! It's like in Toronto, it's from the 401 down to the lake, from the 427 over to Park Lawn area. So it's a massive, like to get from
Massive
one
area.
corner to the other, it could take up to 20 minutes lights and sirens in that division. So if I have 6 officers on the road, we have a traffic accident. All of a sudden, we got 3, 4 cars doing traffic points. Now we have a domestic. I got 2 officers there. Now we got an armed robbery in progress or a home invasion in progress. We got to call other
now you're
divisions
screwed.
to come in.
Yeah, now you're screwed.
And there was reports in 2018 in Toronto of a homicide scene going unanswered for 2 hours. Home invasions. People are having their homes physically invaded, calling 911. The cops show up an hour, 2, 3 later, and they're like, "Hi." Not their fault. There's only 6 of them on the road. So they get stressed out. So next week, you got 5 on the road. And now we have what we have right now, which is people shooting people, people killing people, drug dealers everywhere. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy the way that these mental health injuries are not being healed. And then you have officers who are injured and they're out there and they're beating people up because they're angry, because they're drunk, because they're hurt.
Because
That's
they're
not
hurt.
good.
Yeah, because they're hurt on the inside and they have no other
Right.
way to actually fix it.
Right.
They have no way to
Yeah.
actually create a solution to the
Right.
problem. So then they go out there and then they use the powers that they have as a police officer to put it into their own hands. And I really do
And
think,
nobody came on the job, actually. Right. I just want to conclude that with this.
Sorry.
No police officer that I have kind of come in contact with gets on the job to hurt people. I can't, I don't think anyone that I know of signed up to be a police officer, to hurt people, to kill people at all. And the system surrounding them,
it can really change who they are, because the
100%.
thing is, because if they're gonna, like, you know what I mean, like, you have these guys that are applying to the police service. You already know how hard nowadays it is to be a cop. You have to go through several processes to be a cop in Canada, right? There's over 12 different steps. And the issue is that we have a lot of these cookie cutters. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that get into the system and they don't have that life experience. They don't really have the same experience as a lot of individuals within society, right? They're very the process within itself is very cookie cut, meaning that, like,
they're intellectually book smart.
You can't do that. Yeah, you can be book smart, but are they actually do they have any life experience? Are they educational in any way? Yes, you can have a degree, but in reality, does anyone give a fuck about a degree? No one cares about a fucking degree. They care about how you talk to them, how you can relate to them, and how you can fix that situation at hand, right? Because the issue is people are like, well, I have a degree in this, I have a degree in that. Well, that's great and all, but are you able to de-escalate someone that's cutting off their arm and being able to, de-escalate that situation from stopping happening? Nobody with a degree can go up to someone and do that because you've never dealt with that situation. So,
and that's an impactful thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Right? So like for me, it's just like, you know what I mean? We're really failing our officers by the lack of training, the lack of understanding as the
Right.
seriousness for your mental health. And I really do feel that a lot of mental health training needs to be applied to these police officers on a daily basis. I really think that, every year they should be doing repetitive courses on ways of how to be successful within the job, because not just police, but everywhere else, the burnout rate is fucking insane because of the fact
Mm.
that, when they get home from work, they don't know how to talk it out. They don't know. And then they put it on their wives. And then you wonder why that the divorce rate is so high for police officers and for all these emergency services. And it's just
Yep.
because they have nowhere to go to. They have no resources. They have no help to really do.
Yep.
And the only way that, like you said earlier, Jason, is you go and you take a prescription, or you go and you speak to a psychologist, and then they
Yep.
and then they just go through this bullshit process with you instead of actually saying what's wrong with you, what's the problem that we can fix, and let's try to create a solution to the problem, right? And
100%.
like you said earlier, right? Like there's different ways that people can really be successful within their stressful lives, right? Like you can do art therapy, you can do physical exercise, you can do one-on-one counseling, right? But
Yeah.
but giving someone a pill is just creating a bigger problem to the whole situation, right? And I
Mm.
think the issue is that these police officers, the people like you said that are damaged, that are on the road, that are trying to make ends meet for their family, they're the ones that are taking these prescriptions because they don't want to lose their jobs. And we're kind of forcing police to make the wrong mistakes because we're not really dealing with the task at hand. It's kind of like a security blanket. That
Right.
pill that we give to them is like a blanket to say, okay, he's okay. If he takes that pill, it's okay. But in reality, he is not okay. He's not fine,
Right.
and he needs the professional help that acquires this, right? And there's
Yep.
nothing wrong with that. I think there is nothing absolutely wrong with that. And there should be a lot of protocols in place to really stop this mental health barrier from really happening, because I see it within my job, I see it within your career within policing, and
Mm.
and for mental health all around, like firefighters and ambulance and police and all those industries go through so much shit that they really need to take that step back and really reassess themselves and really understand that I got to focus on me, and I can't really focus on that right now. I got to focus on me,
Yeah.
because my main goal is that I got to love myself. And like going back to what you were saying earlier too, right, is that there's people that hate themselves, right? There's people that are really, they really attack who they are. They attack their character,
Yep.
they attack who they are because of their past experiences and the environment that they're in. But when they were first hired as a cop, they were working at a very decent job, probably. They were working towards a career within policing. They were in a positive environment. But then once you put on that badge and once you put on that uniform, and when you get into the actual job and it's hands on, it always looks greener on the other side. You know what I mean? It always looks greener being like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what? It's sick. He's got a uniform, he's got a badge, and he's got a
Mhm.
sick career. He has a lot of diversity within the role. I'm super
Yep.
excited, right? But like, it's just, what else does the police need to offer? And that's the question that, like, is a big issue because of budgeting, obviously, finances, and the issues that are going on within society for police alone, right? So, I think that there needs to be a lot of changes for mental health, because if we don't make a stand for this, I really think it's going to get worse for all police services. Like if you look at RCMP, if you look at policing services within Ontario or anywhere, right? But it's just insane that we're not doing anything about it. Instead of us not doing anything about it, we're just watching the problem happen. Just like the pandemic, of everything going on. Everyone's sad. Everyone's like, I'm not able to go out anywhere. I'm not able to do anything. I'm not able to do this. And people are just following whatever the government is asking them to do. People are
That's right.
just following it and complying with that direction. Why?
Hmm.
Why are they following that direction? It's because the system's broken. Because people are not
Right.
focusing on emotional and physical health of their well-being, and that's a big issue. People are very busy, busy, busy people, but we always tend to forget to make time for ourselves. And I really do think that being a police officer nowadays, there's not enough time for yourself to really rehabilitate, because they push you from case to case to case, and they push you so hard that you're just like a number more than an individual or a name. You know what I mean? And I really do
Agree.
think that there needs to be changes in that area for sure, because it's just the PTSD has been going through the roof, and it's been a big topic that a lot of people are talking about right now, and I'm glad that it's starting to get out. But there's still a lot of work that needs to get done. There's still a lot of work and change that needs to happen for the better, for people to be successful. Right? People are complaining about police response and how police are reacting to situations, right? And the
Hmm.
issue is that police are doing what they're trained to do. They're doing what they're trained under the government. They're being trained what they're being taught at the academy. And a lot of people don't understand that, there needs to be implementation in regards to the training aspect, so that we can respond better to mental health calls, respond better in regards to every call. Because if we're
Right.
not able to handle that stress factor, then people are just going to go down the wall. People are just going
Mhm.
to get really hurt. And that's something that I don't ever want to see, right? But
Right.
a good situation is something that happened with you, right? Where it became so bad that you had to go to a mental health hospital to get help. And then when you like get out,
Actually, no, I didn't need to
right?
go to the mental health hospital for help in any way, shape, or form. Not at all. I was there to tell them that I'm done with your system, that I've found God, and I don't need your help. And then they kidnapped me. They forcibly confined me. They administered noxious substances to me. They all collaborated together and made money off of me. And that is a criminal organization. Clear cut definition of a criminal organization. That's a problem. They spend over $16 billion a year on a pharmaceutical industry that is the fourth leading cause of death in Canada. That's a problem, Ryan. That's a huge problem. Yet we perpetuate this system consistently by doing what we're doing. We kill people on the streets with mental health issues that are having knives and brandishing knives, and we're forced to kill them. You know, we're forced to take them to a safe place, which is a psychiatric unit. I was there for 21 days. I didn't feel safe. So I understand why people don't want to go there. There is a problem with the system. It's something that has to be changed entirely. Entirely. The truth has to stand. People's voices have to be heard. Like, why are police officers, paramedics, and firefighters consistently responding to calls for service for mental health? When someone gets injured in a car accident and they're taken to the hospital, they have their bones repaired. They have x-rays, they have MRIs done. They have all these things put together so that they can heal. And then they're giving them programs. They can walk again. They can throw a baseball again. You never, ever have police officers and paramedics and firefighters attending calls 2 days after someone gets into an accident because they gave them pills and threw them outside. Why is our mental health system doing the same thing? And I'm specifically talking about our emergency mental health system. There are a lot of psychiatrists out there that actually do sit and talk to people. Pills are effective as a bridge at times. And I want to say at times because statistics show that a very low percentage of the population is positively affected by pharmaceutical medications. You look at the NNI and the NND numbers and the ratios that they determine the effectiveness, it's alarming. And when you bring back that true statistic that pharmaceutical drugs are the fourth leading cause of death in Canada, cancer, heart disease, and accidents are above that, that's a problem. You won't find that on Health Canada's website. You actually have to look at real documents to get that. That's a problem. You know, like last week, I was out in a small town around where I'm living right now, helping to feed the less fortunate at a hotel. And there was a woman there who was having emotional distress, and there was a police officer and a paramedic there. And all I heard this girl screaming was, "I don't want to go to the hospital. You can't take me to the hospital. Don't take me to the hospital." Interesting question. Why don't you want to go to the hospital? That's the safe place, quote unquote, that under the Mental Health Act, these kind police officers and paramedics are required to take you to. Why don't you want to go to this safe place? Can you tell me? And then ask people another question. Tell us about your experience with the currently insured mental health system, and start to listen and start to hear what people say. Opioid overdoses are going through the roof right now. You know, We have a pharmaceutical industry, again, that is perpetuating that. And in my research that I did after I came out of that hospital, I had to make sense of everything. I had to figure out why that happened, what system behind them allowed them to forcibly confine me, kidnap me, and force me to take medications. Because they said you will not be released unless you take medications. I was forced to take them. They didn't physically pin me down or inject me or anything like that, but I was coerced into taking medications, and it really, truly messed me around, man. So when I came out of there, I had to figure stuff out. I had to figure out why. How did this happen? So through my research, I went back a long way. I went back and found out legislation that was introduced in 1914 by a fellow by the name of Harry J. Ainslinger, and he introduced the Harrison Act of 1914. That made the poppy flower and the cocoa leaf illegal, which we now call opium and heroin and cocaine, which are deadly substances, the heroin and the cocaine, for sure. In their chemical format, I've done quantitative analysis on heroin. At best, you're looking at 15%. Cocaine, maybe 20%. The rest of it's not that. Fentanyl, carfentanil, and every other junk that every other cutter puts before it, And then in 1918, the first diagnostic symptom manual comes out, and that basically tells us about our psychiatric illnesses, quote unquote, such as psychosis, dreams and visions that I had on December the 11th, 2017, schizophrenia, words outside of my head from God. That was weird. All of these different things that I experienced are in the diagnostic symptom manual. Is psychosis bad when you're chopping somebody's head off? Yeah. Is psychosis bad when you're floating in the clouds with Jesus and healing and being taken back to your traumatic event to break your soul ties and to reassociate yourself and to see that traumatic event from a different perspective, not that narrow lensed focus that you were involved in at that point? And that's where I get my forgiveness from. That's cool, man. That works for me. But apparently they don't want us to do these things, because if we allow ourselves to self-heal the way I have, all of a sudden you're not spending thousands, I'd say probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars they spent on me and my quote-unquote healthcare through the pharmaceutical industries and all the specialists that they sent me to, trying to address the physical symptoms of my underlying operational stress injuries. And it's absolutely incredible to me to find this research out. And then in 1930s, Henry Ford made and fueled vehicles using hemp, otherwise known as marijuana, the other side of it. In 1937, the U.S. government brought in the Marijuana Tax Act, which made marijuana a Schedule I substance, meaning it had no medicinal value, and basically crushed the marijuana and the hemp industry. So now we have a pharmaceutical industry that mimics opioids and cocaine and other effects of marijuana. And we have a concrete industry. We have a pharmaceutical industry. We have an oil industry that, from my perspective, has a lot of organized crime involved in all of those industries. We also have an illegal drug trade of the poppy flower and the cocoa leaf. The cocoa leaf was chewed in ancient times to subside hunger and increase energy, build the pyramids, perhaps. The poppy flower has seeds, sap, and leaves used for surgeries, for sedation. Now we're mimicking those things. And look at the overdoses we have from synthetic opioids now. Look at the amount of people dying over a quote-unquote war on drugs. Look at the amount of people dying on the war on mental health. The system has to change. And I'm not saying that we need to make heroin and cocaine legal in its current form and provide safe injection sites. No, that's not the answer. They're still putting poison in their body. God gave us the poppy flower. God gave us the cocoa leaf. God gave us the marijuana plant for a reason. For example, you look at marijuana. We were given 20 plants, historically speaking, going back to ancient times. We have over 5,000 strains of marijuana available to us right now. 4,980 of them are made for profit, made by man. And in my experience, I use natural medications now, including marijuana. And it's been a huge problem for me to find those specific strains that do what they're supposed to do, which is enlighten me, to open my mind up, to allow me peace and calm while I'm going through my traumatic events. Because the majority of marijuana out there just gives you couch lock. You grab a bag of cheesies and you're playing video games because people want to block out their minds. They don't want to think about their stuff. In order to heal, you actually got to take all those rocks out of your backpack and acknowledge your thoughts and your emotions one at a time, build a new ladder of life to get out of that hole, and you need someone there to do it with you. It's really hard to do it on your own, you know. So going back to the research of the upside down world we're in right now is causing a lot of death in the way that we're doing things right now. And I think what we need to do is we need to get back to the roots of creation. We need to get back to using things that are natural, including each other, you know. Like I mentioned before, I used equine therapy, canine therapy, art therapy, an abundance of what I call natural and renewable resources. And when you bring them all together into one kind of place or one process, it helps, and it's helped me. So to get out of this upside down world, what I've done is I've put together a not-for-profit agency called New Hope Field of Dreams, and we're bringing together our local community resources to present the problem, to provide solutions, and to promote the solutions. And the way that we're doing that is there are a bunch of us from the frontline community, or who I call our local heroes, who are coming together to present the problem. So our goal through that is to our goal for that is to present a 12-part documentary that right now I'm calling The War on Mental Health. And we're going to talk to the people. We're going to go out to the hotels and the alleyways and talk to the homeless people and ask them those two questions. Why don't you want to go to a safe place? Tell us about your experience with the currently insured mental health system and listen. And then talk to the police officers and the paramedics and the firefighters who attend these mental health crisis calls and ask their experiences with it on the job, and also how that has a ripple effect on their family at home. And then we go and talk to the nurses, the nutritionists, and the social workers, and eventually the doctors and psychiatrists. And we ask them about Sally Ann and Billy and Joe and all these people who were under their care, and ask them what happened. And it's not their fault, you know. They're given a book, they're given a system that they need to follow. There's a lot of injured people out there right now, and they're overwhelmed, and they don't have the answers clearly. And the mental health side, like I've mentioned, is huge. What I've experienced in my own personal life through the visions that I receive on a regular basis are impactful. They're amazing. Recently, I've been having my spiritual eyes opened up. So now I'm seeing colors in the clouds, and that's messed up. That's really messed up. I see shadows, you know, around people. You know, that's supernatural. You know, I can't even say crazy because I'm beginning to understand why I'm seeing these things. You know, it gives me a different perspective on things. Through my journey of healing, I've also been given the power from God to heal other people through touch. And I feel transcending pains in my body that tell me where other people's injuries are: separated shoulders, broken toes, emphysema, cancers, stomach issues, kidney stones, like so many different things where I myself have those pains in my body, but then I realize that it's the person in my environment that has those pains. And I've personally experienced when I've laid hands, I've felt people's bones pop. I felt their tendons move. I felt their knee bubble. I like weird things, man, but they're healed, you know, and that's weird, but true, you know. And when I begin to understand my own person and how I operate now, it brings so much revelation towards the mental health industry and what people are experiencing. Like I was feeding the homeless in Oshawa a couple of years ago, and there was this girl going around in the park with a Bible in her hand, and she's yelling at people saying, you need Jesus, and get Satan out of you. And they're ready to punch the shit out of her, man. And I was like, whoa, girl, what's up? And I went over and I'm like, hey, how are you? And she looks at me, she's like, oh, hi, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I got Jesus. He's like, they need Jesus. And I'm like, yep, yeah, you're right. That's why they're here. They're homeless and they need food. They need love. And I said, what do you see? She's like, what do you mean? What do I see? I'm like, huh, you know what I mean? What do you see? Do you see lights? Do you see shadows? She says, I see like shadows, like little like creatures, like that guy over there. He's got like little things coming out of his pant leg. And I'm like, okay, okay, you're not crazy. I said, what you have is a spirit of discernment, discerning of spirits. I said, come on over here. And I showed her in the word where it says that. And I said, I want you to do this. I want you to sit here. I want you to look at that guy's leg where those things are coming out the bottom. And I just want you to say this. I want you to say, demons be gone in the name of Jesus. Say it 3 times if you need to. So she says it, and poof, they're gone. And she's like, wow, they're gone. I'm like, yeah, don't yell and scream at people, man. The name is above all names. Like, and she's like, wow. So all of a sudden, this woman who's not that she was going to hit people, she's not far from it though. Now she's sitting under a tree doing that. That's weird, but true.
It's totally screwed up. Yeah, totally screwed
Yeah,
up.
that's true though, brother. Like that's my own personal experience. I'm not reading a book and telling you some story, man. Like
It's
that's
fucking
weird.
insane. Yeah, it's really weird.
Weird, right? And what we are here for from my transition is to do just that, man. Like I don't want to get too deep with stuff, but times are changing as we can see with things around us. People are going down a wide gate and doing what the fear box tells them to do, and that's fine. I don't judge people in any way, shape, or form. I sit in my place of truth and I recognize what's happening, and I don't want to shift back and forth, through different perspectives. I have my perspective of the way things are right now, and
It's very
yeah,
powerful, very life changing, right? And like
definitely.
it's cool to see that perspective of when an officer sees that, where if like let's imagine like an officer goes to the situation, goes to the same situation, right? And
Right.
you're just like, hey, what's going on? And that lady's like, oh, I'm seeing creatures, I'm seeing different shapes and forms, different things, and then the cop leads it to violence instead of actually trying to de-escalate
Right.
it and move it to
Because of the
something
training.
positive. Yes, because it's a
Yeah.
trained thought, right?
Right.
And yes,
So
like
so not even only does the police service, the paramedics, and the firefighters, the front line, the nurses, the doctors, psychiatrists, no one teaches them that stuff. And you know who else doesn't teach that stuff? Is what they call the church.
yeah,
These people that go to these buildings and say they believe in Jesus, and then they do what they do at home, and they walk past homeless people, bro. Like I hate religion, man. Like I love the truth. I love Jesus. I love the word of God because it is true. I hate religion. There's 42,000 different denominations that believe in God. They can't even have barbecue together. Come on, man. We're all the same. Enough of your silliness, man. Doesn't matter you're white. Sorry, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, Chinese. Doesn't matter if you're transgender, transphobic, you're homo. Whatever. I don't care. You're a human being. I love you. Period. Enough of the judgment. Enough of the hatred. Enough of the division, man. Like just look at each other from a different perspective. We're all hurt because the world around us sucks.
and a
We
lot
are
of people,
not made
yeah,
to live in this world.
and a lot of people here are in a lot of pain and suffering
Yep,
from
yep,
so from everything, right? And like you said, you have these hardcore religious people preaching their own word, but they're not really
yep.
following with what they're guided to actually do you know what I mean? Like
No,
they're
no.
actually they're saying that they want to help homeless people, they want to do this, they want to do that, but like you
Then do it.
said, but then just fucking do it instead of
Do
just
it.
like
Yeah.
faking it. Because if we just keep faking it just like we are right now, we're gonna be in the same success that we are right now, which is horrible, right?
Right. My people
And
perish due to lack of knowledge.
yeah, and information's power, man, right? And
Yeah, yeah. Do
so
not conform to patterns of this world, but transform your mind. Like people are dragging their knuckles around in the mud, picking up worms and dirt, and just throwing them at each other. Like enough. Don't get consumed in the world. The world is not where we want to be, and I mean like the devices of the world. Those things that distract us from our purpose.
mhm.
Get away from them, man. That's why I love being in this trailer because it's my environment. I can create in this environment. I can produce new life, collaborate to bring a group of 100 people together from across Ontario and Canada. to provide this documentary of truth, to build places like New Hope Field of Dreams, Family Revival Retreat. You know, it's a big thing that we need to do. And those who want to will, those that don't want to can do what they need to do. And that's cool. No judgment.
And do you feel that, like, we know we just got out of a pandemic pretty much, right? And this term that I'm going to be saying is called social pandemic. So it's basically meaning that, like, do you feel like in our society today, do you feel there is like a social pandemic within our society? It's not the COVID issue that we're dealing with, it's the social aspect of society. And that's kind of what I mean by social pandemic, meaning that, like, you
Yep.
know, there's so many issues within society that if we don't fix it over time, it's going to lead to a lot of dangers for a lot of individuals, and it's going to
Agreed.
lead to a lot of problems. And I really do
Agreed.
think right now there is a social pandemic in society for first responders. And I think that there's a social pandemic for people that are suffering from mental health, you know, and
Yep.
people are just saying, oh, well, we have CAMH, we have these services to provide for you, we have this, we have that. But what happens if there's a person that can't do that? What happens if there's a person that genuinely wants to try to make a difference for people, but you know, it's in an institution. It's not actually like face to face compared to like what you're offering, like in
Mm.
your organization, right? So it's crazy that, you know, that police services and other areas that are involved in law enforcement and first response doesn't apply some of these methods as ways to rehabilitate versus going to CAMH or going to these other mental health facilities,
Yeah. And it's just
right?
the books that they read. And it's just the instructions that they're given. Like when I was the beginning of, I guess for 2 years, I was going down to headquarters to see medical advisory services, and I took part in can praxis equine therapy, and it was incredible the experience that I had down there. And I was telling the doctor, Dr. Windsor at the Toronto Police Medical Advisory Services about this, and he said, "quote unquote, if you believe that riding around on horses is going to help you, you got something else coming." And I said, "well, first off, we're not riding around on horses. We're actually learning about pressure and release and how to, you know, um, you have no idea what you're talking about." And I sent him, I sent the Toronto Police Association, the wellness people, an email back in April of 2018, inviting them to an open house on May the 9th, Mother's Day, I believe it was, in Ashburn, Ontario, at a ranch where Camp Praxis was going to tell people from the first responders community what they're all about. No one from the Toronto Police showed up. They didn't care. You know, they have a book. They have their idea. I've been in touch with a number of people within the Toronto Police Service, not only at my level, but within the Toronto Police Association. um, they don't seem to care. They have their own interests at mind. I would say that the Toronto Police Service itself is a very fractured and splintered organization when it comes to dealing with their members' mental health. Um, one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing. They don't communicate together. They don't collaborate together, and that's a problem. Um, from my perspective, and what we're building these retreats across Canada for, is when a frontline worker or who I call a local hero becomes aware of an injury, whether it's a catastrophic event at work or a cumulation of a number of injuries, and they present to their supervisor that they're hurt or injured, that they are immediately met by, at this point in the Police Services Act, a medically trained doctor who would book them off sick immediately. They would be met by a trauma trained psychologist and a team of peer to peer support helpers who would basically take them to a safe environment like New Hope Field of Dreams. And they would invite their family to come and be part of the process. They would be triaged properly. They would be given a safe and comfortable environment to stay if they wished. They would be provided with a multitude of resources and options. And we would self tailor the program towards them and their family. And they would be assigned somebody who is their mentor, their partner, their sponsor, whatever you want to call it, through the entire process. So at any time, at any moment you have an issue, you know, you can call somebody and they will answer the phone. And that's
It's incredible.
what needs to happen.
This is the real changes that needs to happen though, because we can keep sending people home and contemplate their thoughts, right? But by you creating this program and by you creating this organization, it's going to be life changing for a lot of people,
right.
and I do
Yeah.
think that people that are in first response or people that are first responders need more programs like this where
Right. And
people
it's
are,
also
yeah.
the interactive ones. So looking with the Peterborough Police Service, for example, and the Court of the Lakes Police Service, starting pilot projects with them next year, where their teams would come up for a day or maybe a couple of days at various points to basically unwind. Come up here, ride around a horse for a while, maybe go for a trail walk or do something in nature until we get the art therapy mobility centers up. Um, Basically, just offering that. So when we are up and running, we're looking at building programs with our frontline workers on a regular basis so they can have a getaway day, an unpack day, an unload day, or maybe it's a 2 day thing, um, and make it mandatory. My mandatory days were at Ginsberg Wong down at Queen and St. Patrick drinking after shift. That was productive in the aspect that you could actually talk about the stinkies and the holy shit moments and have that dark humorous conversations that other people are messed up, that other people think are messed up. But it was necessary because we didn't take those rocks home with us and throw them at our families. We left them on the bar floor. But this is a different way of doing things. Obviously, there's no alcohol involved at this site that we have. And it's just providing a safe environment with like minded people where they can sit down and they can express their thoughts of taking part in that catastrophic car accident or arrest or whatever it was, and to unpack it, inviting teams. For example, the one that uh, took my how do I say this? For example, the one that killed my murder suspect. I had to take his life. Um, Having that whole team come up, that would have been good. Not just a little debriefing session in a police station, but in a different environment.
So
And that's our goal.
do you feel that traumatic incidences for police services, do you feel that they need to do more steps than what they're doing after a situation? So, for example, like you were in an event, it was traumatic and someone's life was taken, and then you go back to the police station, they do the debrief of the situation. What services do you think or what would you recommend to people that have been in this situation to deal with their stress at the time? Like, what would you recommend for somebody?
Based on the current situation and the way that the laws are and how the SIU kidnaps you and puts you in a private room and tells you can't talk to people and doesn't give you access to a lawyer until you write your notes up. In that particular moment, I guess you got to do a lot of self-reflection and meditation because you're alone and you have no one to help you. That's the real situation right now. When an officer becomes involved in a shooting, they're secluded and put into an area. They used to be able to talk to a lawyer who would then help them write up their notes. But then what they found was that the notes were of the lawyer's thoughts and not of the officer's thoughts. So now they do not have access to a lawyer. So right now, just a lot of self-reflection, just like being thrown in a cave all by yourself after you did your justified duty. And good luck,
That's
unfortunately.
that's not the way to do things. It's not the way to.
No, no, but that is the way things are right now. Unless they've changed in the last little while, that's my understanding of what happens when an officer becomes involved in a shooting in Ontario.
That's pretty wrong and insane, I think.
100%. They should be met by a trauma trained psychologist, like I said, a medical doctor who books them off sick. That trauma trained psychologist will help them process their thoughts in that moment and their emotions. They will not write their notes. They will not tell them how to write their notes. They will just allow them that safe space to get through their emotional state of just taking somebody's life. That's important.
It's
Not
crazy.
being put in a room and separated. You're separated from your team as well, which I can understand on an evidentiary based when you're trying to prove
Prove
that a police
evidence.
officer
Yeah.
took somebody's life and did wrong, which is the entire aspect of the SIU's mandate. when there's suspected police wrongdoing. Okay, right. Um, we're put into situations where we're forced to kill people because the system doesn't heal them. Not our fault at all. We're trained. Look at Frasillo, who shot the guy in the streetcar in Toronto. The rules that we were told was there's a 21-foot space. When someone armed with an edged weapon, if they're within 21 feet of you, you will be stabbed unless you have your weapon out. And you might also be stabbed, even if you do have your weapon out, just based on momentum. And they demonstrated that with a Sharpie and with with a Sharpie and paint pellet guns. The other thing they tell us about interactions with people with edged weapons is once you have to draw a line in the sand. So essentially, if you cross that line, you come any closer to me, I am going to shoot you. And then the third thing is to shoot until the threat stops. So in that instance, Priscilla was presented with a guy with an edged weapon. He was less than 21 feet away, substantially less, probably about maybe 12, although there were stairways and a door that he could have closed. We weren't trained how to close doors from the outside of a bus, nor did he have a taser on him. So he was presented with an edged weapon. He knew he was within the 21 feet. He told the guy not to cross that white line or he'll shoot him. He crossed that white line, coming closer to his 21-foot proximity, and shot him. When he fell to the ground, he started to twitch. He started to grasp at the knife, so he shot him more. We were trained to do all three things that he did. He was convicted and put in jail for killing that kid on the subway or on the streetcar. And there was also evidence that suggested that that youngster wanted to die by suicide that day at the hands of a police officer. That's a problem when your training puts you in jail. I've been in situations where I've been given a Form 1 to enforce, which is admission to the mental health unit. So I have the authority under the Mental Health Act to use as much force as necessary because I have this piece of paper issued by a doctor to say, bring her in. And I had one where I was wrestling with a 90-year-old woman to put her in handcuffs, brother. And I was like 3 seconds into that. And I'm like, fuck am I doing? Why am I wrestling with my great-grandmother, my grandmother? Why am I doing this? I'm not doing this. And I just said, fuck it. And I said I couldn't find her. You know? Actually, no, sorry. She did end up coming with me. But I wasn't fighting with her. Like, it was just incredible, the situations that were put in and the law that we're told to do.
And it's really wrong that we're put into this position and that, you know, there's people that are suffering from this on a daily basis, not just from you, but it's thousands upon millions of people
100%.
that are in this situation, right? Where you're trained to do something that's right from wrong. You think that it's right, so you do it, but then the training behind it and the understanding on how to deal with certain situations, they make it sound like you're not human. They make it sound like, you know,
Right.
that it's
You're
like
not
you
human.
said, like robotic,
Robotic. Yeah.
and not emotional. But humans have to, humans need to respond though with emotional response, right? And the reason is because people want love, people want comfort, and people want care, right? And
Yep.
the only way to really reassess a situation is really by having some empathy on the situation and really communicating that out. Because
Yep.
I found that within my career, working and within your role, we have to de escalate rules all the time. But if
Yep.
we're just complete robots and we're like, no, shut the fuck up, do this, this, and this, they're not going to listen to you. No one's going to
No.
listen to you, right? But if you said, hey, man, how was your day? Can you kind of tell me what kind of happened? What got you into this position?
Yeah.
Like, imagine if we had a different angle on how we approach certain people and how we
100%.
approach certain things, right? Yes, we love
You
the
get
action.
way more success with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
yeah,
it's the empathy rather than the sympathy, having an empathetic approach. And it makes a difference. I even found in my interrogations, the major crime, we had a guy that did one B&E. He was brought in, and the old school guys were doing their tactics. And I decided to go back and have a conversation with him. And I opened up just like you said. I said, how are you? What happened? Why are you here? Tell me about yourself. And all of a sudden, he's smoking, not all of a sudden, but he's He just said to me, I'm smoking $2,000 worth of crack a day. I lost my daughter. She's out here. I'm homeless, blah, blah, blah. And he ended up confessing to over 100 B&Es, and that was for his benefit because he was able to do his time in BC to be closer to his daughter. But rather than, just do an old school policing, have a conversation with somebody, and that's what I've found. Like, I've been in front of girl guides and scouts and stuff like that in my uniform, and my gun and my taser and my stick and my handcuffs and all this stuff. And I say to the group of kids, what do you think is my most powerful weapon that you see right here? And of course, the boys say the gun and the girls say the stick and the taser. And I said, no. I said this and this. I said, I've never shot anybody. I've never tased anybody. I've never hit anyone with my stick. I've never pepper sprayed anybody, ever. So this is what's got me out of my situation. Said I'm 5'7", 150 pounds at best, maybe 160 when I got some meat on me, but I can't fight 300-pound fellas. And I honestly have never used any of those weapons. I pointed them at people, but I've never deployed them. And it's so true when you get into a situation, especially in an undercover capacity, when you don't have those tools with you, you're left with nothing but that, your brain and your mouth, to get yourself out of some very dire situations. So it's important to have that when you're out there.
That
And
aspect
a
of
lot of
things,
people,
right? Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of people, like you said, just sympathize with people as opposed to empathize with them. And the empathy is where you make that connection, where you can actually make a difference in someone's life rather than just the facts.
Yeah,
But
and
we are
yeah.
rushed because there's only so many officers on the street. I just need the facts. I got to go. I just need the facts. I got to go. I'm sorry that this happened. I need the facts. I got to go. Here's victim services. Here's this. Here's that. Not that we're supposed to be social workers, although I was probably more of a social worker when I was a cop than I was an enforcement guy, because I just like to talk to people, and to try to help. Not just jack them up with a Form 9 for having a joint in their pocket or something like that, but talk to them.
And be real with them and explain why they did something wrong instead of
Yeah.
just hitting them with the book. Because if you hit them with the book, like, yes, I understand that there's some people that deserve to be in the system. I'm not saying that they don't. I definitely think that there should be a system in place. But for somebody that is 18 years old, smoking weed, and in a place where it's safe, like in his neighborhood, it's nothing like crazy, right? Do you really need to do the same type of enforcement as if somebody is drinking and driving? No.
Yeah.
It's totally different. It's a totally different situation, and the people that enter these situations need to have more empathizing thoughts on the whole situation, because if you're able to bring someone from up to here down to here by effective communication and interpersonal communications, you're going to be able to de-escalate any conflict whatsoever, right? Because I found that, dealing in the world of law enforcement or dealing in the world of what we do, you have to really have an understanding on how to calm someone down, because the thing is that we're cops, and people want to be like in that position. People want to be powerful. People want that power. People want that form of position, right? And I think people really need to understand that if you come through an empathizing point of view, a lot of our conflicts, a lot of these shootings, and a lot of these overdoses wouldn't be happening. And a lot of the time is that, people that are in these situations in the first place tend to have a bad environmental background in the first place, like we talked about earlier. You know what I mean? They're in a crack house with their mom. He's 18 years old, and the only thing he's been doing for the last 12 years is smoking meth with his mom and dad. They're in the basement, and then he's outside having a joint. Even though it's illegal to smoke it in a public place, they still act the same as if this guy was, shooting a gun or had a gun in their possession, right? But the thing is that maybe if you approach it in a different situation and you actually deal with the problem head on, and you try to actually take in what they say and create positive impact, I think
Yep.
that a lot of people wouldn't be in the same position that we're in today, you know,
Yeah, and that starts with our doctors.
and that starts with doctors, that starts with
Yeah,
psychiatry, that starts with
yeah.
everything, right?
We
And
shouldn't,
like,
as first
yeah,
responders, be responsible for dealing with people's emotional situations. We should be dealing with robberies. We should be dealing with thefts. We should be dealing with violent crimes, and they should lessen once the doctors actually begin to talk to people and provide the proper resources to help people.
yeah, and I definitely think you're spot on about that, right? And in our society today, like, what would you recommend for someone that's in law enforcement or somebody that's in the emergency services, right? If they ever come through these problems or these issues, how do you like? What type of therapy would you suggest them to do? Like, yes, call a friend if they need help. Reach out and phone to friends and family. Try to do meditation. Try to do all these other things. But what would you recommend to somebody that would be suffering the same emotions that you went through as an officer because you were so good, right? Like you really cared about the community and you made an impact for society. And then, you know, PTSD came down the road and, you know, that's what ended the career because of the fact of
Mm-hmm.
so much stress and so much buildup of all the things that we're just talking about, right? But
Yeah.
imagine if we can cut all of that in half by just like, you know, making a great impact for society by providing ways for them to do therapy and a way for them to actually rehabilitate properly. Because a lot of people now don't get that one on one time with the therapist. A lot of people don't get that one on one growing time because of their environment, right? So it's just, what would you recommend to them? To the people that are like suffering right now, what would you recommend them to do in Canada?
Well, the first thing I would recommend is reach out to somebody who knows about trauma. Um, my experience is generally people like myself can provide a lot more depth of education about recovery than someone who's read a book um, or taken some courses or gotten some sort of a degree. It's very important to have a trauma trained psychologist or psychotherapist or a practitioner who knows about specific things that we go through. Um, yeah, it is pretty limited right now with where you can go, and it also depends on your profession and what coverage you have. There are a number of not-for-profit and charitable organizations out there that do offer programs, like Hand Praxis is one of them, the horse equine therapy. Wounded Warriors is another one. They do have some very effective programs. Badge of Life Canada. Um, there's a few organizations out there right now, but again, it's depending on your current insurance system, the availability of these programs. Um, yeah, so there's limited.
And it all goes back down to money. It all goes back down to organizations, and it goes against
Right.
it goes back to government too, right?
Right. So you
And
mentioned earlier about the funding
yeah,
of stuff and the money and whatnot. They don't need to increase the money. They just need to redirect the money towards proper proven resources and stop wasting money on things that don't work. Like it's just the smart business decision to do. Maybe you just need someone that has a business degree somewhere in the world to actually do this. And obviously, I'm being a little bit facetious because they're just blind to the truth. Any normal business manager could see that what they're doing right now is not actually working, other than the fact that it's a $1 billion industry that uh, people drive around in fancy cars and have big houses because of pills. So
it's crazy, right? With this whole
yeah,
pharmaceutical society and with everything that's going on, right? Um, I'd like to make a sponsorship for within this podcast for New Hope Field of Dreams, which is the family revival retreat, and their plan is to restore, revive, and promote the natural healing of all Canadians, starting with our local heroes and their families, bringing us back to the roots of creation and providing a new hope for generations to come. Their goal at New Hope Field of Dreams is to promote this collaborative natural solution across Canada to provide solutions. I really want to thank you so much for talking about your organization and talking about what you offer within your organization, because there needs to be a lot more people that have the same passion as you, the same type of
Right.
drive to really care about Canadians and to care about society. And I really think that if we can make an impact on people's mental health and save the mind, I really do think that we can make an impact and change. And people are very closed minded and they're like, well, I don't know if this is going to happen, man. I don't know if this is going to be a real goal. But the real thing is that it all starts off with you. It all starts off as you as an individual believing in yourself every single day. And
Mhm.
and people that are in PTSD, you know, and people that not just PTSD alone, but mental health issues is confidence. And people really suffer from confidence, and it's because of everything that we're discussing, and we really need to make that big impact, and that's what's going to save a lot more lives, suicides, overdoses, because the system's broken in that sense. Because I just think that, you know, yeah, you get arrested, they put you in a cell, they make you contemplate your thoughts for over 23 hours, but what is the solution to the problem is that you're not fixing the problem while you're there. You're actually just sitting there contemplating your thoughts, and you're like, am I going to be able to be successful? Am I going to be happy? Am I going to be successful? These are all the questions that people are wanting to know, that are suffering from mental health, people that are suffering within the jail system, people that are suffering all across Canada. And I'm so glad that you were able to point out a lot of the different issues that we've had in our society and the issues that have been faced with this. And I appreciate so much of your time with everything that is going on in regards to this topic, right? Because it's just insane on
Mhm.
what is going on. Because imagine if we had New Hope Field of Dreams everywhere. Imagine if we had New Hope Field of Dreams in Ontario, Alberta, Manitoba, all of these places,
Yep,
right?
that's the goal. It will
Right?
happen.
Yeah, and like I really do think that your program will make a passion for society. I really do think you're going to make a difference for a lot of people,
Thank you.
and people are going to make change. People are going to make differences because of you. And I really do appreciate you explaining
Thank you.
about your organization and about who you are, right? And you're the guy that really knows what's going on in society, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on my show, taking the time to explain everything in the real way. This is not bullshit talk. This is like real talk. And a lot of
Mhm.
people are very afraid of this type of environment, and we should be less afraid because we would actually create more solutions to the problem, right?
Right.
By us just even talking about what we're doing today is just so special, right?
Right. Yeah,
And
it is.
and I just really want to say that you've been an inspiration for myself, and I've looked up to you for many years.
Thank you.
You know, and I really appreciate your intelligence on this subject matter, and I truly believe you are going to make a great impact and change within Canada, right? Like, I really
Cool.
do.
Thanks, Brad. I
And,
believe too.
right, I just can't believe that, you know, out of all these years and out of all these expert opinions and all these expert advice, you know, they all come back to the pill. They always come back to these mental health facilities. But
Mhm.
imagine what your organization's offering. You're actually offering what real love should be for these people, because not a lot
Yeah.
of these people have love, and it's really good for you, and it's good for everyone to know about your program and to know everything, because it will change lives. It will make an impact for
Definitely.
society.
Yep.
And we need more programs like what you offer. And the world of mental health within Canada has been such a serious problem for first responders. And throughout my episodes, you'll be seeing the real issues that are impacting society today, and also providing you tips and tricks on how to be successful within your day to day life. I want to motivate you in becoming successful. I want to ensure everyone understands the seriousness of mental health and how to take care of your mind for essential happiness and self growth for yourself. Because I really do believe that you or anyone else, and Jason and myself, can really become better as individuals. And I really want to thank you so much for everything that you've done today. And I really want to let society know that if you do this, I'm sure you can believe in it. And I'm sure that if you just put that effort for yourself first before someone else, this is the solutions and this is what you're going to find for yourself, right? And you're failing by refusing to acknowledge its importance of significance, right? I really do think that this topic is a beautiful topic if we're able to shed the light in a different way. And
Yeah.
I just I really want to make an impact for the world. And I really thank you for being my first interview, and I thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this. And I appreciate you
Yeah.
for sharing your spiritual thoughts, your personal opinions, and your work experience and everything behind it. Because without you, we can't have change. And I really do appreciate you in this
Great.
in my
Thanks, brother.
podcast.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me about this. Getting the conversation going is the first thing, and awareness, knowledge, obviously, proper education is what's going to change things. And as long as we center our thoughts on love and respect each other and not judge each other, I think we can actually do what we need to do, and that's to bring proper change for mental health and to love each other properly.
Exactly. Alrighty. Well, thank you
Cool.
for your time, and
Thanks,
thank you
brother.
so much.
All right, man.